When application completion rates drop, something is off. Students aren't getting the support they need, and that's affecting your numbers. Enter Element 451's AI assistants. They step in where students struggle, offering real-time answers and advice, guiding them through every step. Learn how AI assistants can boost your enrollment outcomes. Visit element451.com/AI team to learn more.
On this very special crossover episode, I'm joined by Allison Turcio, host of The Application with Allison Turcio, right here on Enrollify. Allison and I are diving back into our Element 451 Engage Summit session to talk about ways marketers can use AI to create content from scratch, content with little to no resources, and create content at scale. To catch our full Engage Summit session, click the link in the show notes below. Enjoy the episode. Welcome to Breaking Silos, a podcast that shines a light on the incredible partnerships happening across campuses every day. I'm your host, Shane Baglini from Muhlenberg College. Join me every 2 weeks for discussions with some of the best minds in higher ed marketing, enrollment management, student affairs, campus leadership, and more. Breaking Silos is part of the Enrollify Network, a robust collection of podcasts designed to help higher education professionals like you grow. Explore our other shows at enrollify.org or check out some of my personal favorites linked in the show notes below. Enrollify is made possible by Element 451, the next generation AI student engagement platform, helping institutions create meaningful and personalized interactions with students. Learn more at element451.com.
Hi, Shane.
Hey, Allison. How are you?
Good. I think today for this really special episode that we should start by talking about new program pages, because making something out of nothing is not easy. So I know that you've used ChatGPT to help you do this. But first, before we get into how ChatGPT can help, let's talk about some of the challenges in creating a website for a brand new academic program that doesn't have any enrolled students yet. I just had one recently. Have you had one recently?
I have. And, at Muhlenberg, we're launching graduate programs at a pretty rapid pace. And so none of them have students. And I think the biggest challenge, not only do we not have students, so we can't do testimonials, we can't do videos, we can barely even get B-roll sometimes. We've had to reach out to external partners of ours for B-roll, for videos. I think the biggest challenge, as you said, is kind of, making something out of nothing. Most of the time, I've got, a program proposal from a faculty member or a dean. I've got what I want the program to look like and the page to look like, and I've got our style guide. And really, those are the three things that I'm working with. And so it's really hard for marketers to be subject matter experts in many different things. And so I think this is where AI can really play a role, and has played a role for me.
I don't know about you, but I don't find especially the proposal documents all that helpful, because they're often in a format that's used for, here in New York, we have to submit to New York State Department of Education. Yeah. And so it's in their format. So it's not even in a format that makes sense for the college, right? Actually, I want to say that the people proposing new programs probably go through a two-part process. One, they have all kinds of forms they use internally to get through what we call Board of Instruction approval. And then they have to do all these state documentation. So none of it is what a marketer needs, though.
Exactly. And ours are really written for faculty approval and middle states approval.
Yes.
And so they've got the information I need most of the time, but really it's minimal. It's like, how do I decipher the benefits of this program? How do I distill that down for a student that knows nothing about this particular topic or is just starting their search? Especially on the grad side, I found it challenging because the program I'm trying to talk about, how in-depth the subject matter is, how our faculty are experts in this subject matter, and I don't know anything about the subject matter. So I'm kind of working blind. And, at a time like this, when it's summer and faculty aren't really checking emails or aren't on campus yet, it can be a real challenge. And it takes me a significant amount of not only time, but also, mental energy to kind of put myself in this subject matter expert role.
So one of the things I'm doing, to your point, isn't super helpful when the faculty aren't available immediately. So I have a form I ask the program director or whoever it is that is the champion of that program to fill out that I've started using. So maybe as adding to the list of documents that you're using, I would add, I just make a Google form and I ask them things like, describe the ideal or target audience, their goals and their motivations. I ask what the learning experience will be. I ask the specific skills and knowledge students will gain, because some of those things are not addressed on the curriculum side in a program document. So I have this list of questions and they're not all relevant to all programs. So I just ask them to fill out what they can for their program. And I use that as a source of data as well.
Yeah, that's such a great idea. And, especially for this kind of use case, because a lot of that information lives in the faculty member's mind and it's not on the paper. And really it'll just kind of add context to what you're asking of ChatGPT or whatever AI you're using to help you create this content in terms of here's the audience, here's what motivates them, here's the career outcomes they're looking for, whatever you're asking on the form could just really add a depth of context to the AI model that you're using.
Because you have to figure it out because there has to be content on the website, right? I mean, the program might not have any students yet. They might not have even taught a class yet. But if it's not on the website, you're never going to get any students. You're not going to be able to launch this thing.
Exactly. So you have to do what you can. And one of the things that I've found beneficial is that we worked with a number of different partners at Muhlenberg, external vendors. And, one of them that was really good, it was EAB, came back to us with an audit of our website and really laid out exactly what graduate students are looking for in a web page. And that has served us really well in terms of a model of how to create these pages. So when I have a new program, I know the structure that I need. I know the information that I need there. I know I have to have course descriptions. I have to have tuition. I have to have financial aid opportunities. I have to have career outcomes. And so all those things really kind of structure that in a way that I can go to ChatGPT and say, use these pages as models for this new page, but use the information that I have from either the program proposal or the form, like you mentioned. And it just really allows me to create a little bit more in-depth information than I would ever be able to just off the top of my head.
What I really like about your approach, and we're going to get into the step-by-step for everybody next to help you all understand how Shane does this. But what I really like about this is that you're not having the AI come up with the content. You are serving it the content.
Right.
What you're asking it to do is put it into a structure that'll work for a program page, and in particular, in this case, a brand new program page. The source of information is your school. The source of information is still your faculty member who started the program. The source of information is still you as the marketing manager because you're telling it the format that it needs to be in. And I think that's how you keep the human part about this. It's not just robots deciding how to put a new program page together.
Exactly.
There's still human interference here.
Yeah, agreed. And that's an important point too, because one of the things, I think we'll talk about it a little bit later, but one of the things to be on the lookout for is accuracy as far as AI models go. And so a good fail-safe there is making sure that you're providing the content and saying to ChatGPT, this is the content and the knowledge I want you to use my style guide, use AP style writing, and create or help me create a page in this particular format, touching on these 4 or 5 different key sort of pillars for the page.
So let's get into a walkthrough of how you do this. So to me, it sounds like the first step is you gather all of your important sources of information. You have to have your documents together, your style guide, your program information, the format you use for your program web pages. What else am I missing?
Not much, honestly. I mean, it depends on the program. Yeah. And one of the important things is knowing kind of what format to upload these documents in. This is something I learned from artists from Element 451 was that, ChatGPT prefers TXT files. So if you've got a PDF, it's fine. But if you can export it to a TXT, same with like a web page. If you have ChatGPT 4.0, you can feed it a link and tell it to read that page, but you'll get better results by just directly uploading the copy or a document or something like that.
Good
so that's
tip.
one thing.
Yeah, good
Yeah.
tip.
Also, your style guide is important. And, at Muhlenberg, we've got our style guide on the web. But this is also something that I've exported into a TXT file just to make sure that I'm getting the most accurate information. And I always remind, if you're not using a custom GPT, always remind ChatGPT to only adhere to your style guide, because remember, it's picking up things from around the internet and everybody else's knowledge, which isn't going to match your school. So it's important to just remind ChatGPT, stick to these rules and procedures, almost as if, think of it as an intern, like we always talk about.
Yeah.
You would tell your intern, write in this style, refer to our style guide when you have a question about Oxford comma, whatever it might be. Those are really important kind of foundational things to make sure that you have in line. That'll just end up saving you time in the long run.
What else does your style guide have in it? So it has like your writing style. Does it have tone? Does it have some description about voice and how you want to portray Muhlenberg?
Yeah. So the other thing I uploaded into ChatGPT for this is our strategic messaging framework at Muhlenberg.
Great. Yeah.
So we've got 4 kind of key content pillars that we focus on based on some research that we did a couple years ago. And again, that's really important to talk about the identity of the institution and highlighting those things that really resonate with students. For us at Muhlenberg, it's challenge, support, impact, belonging. And so how can we weave those things into each and every piece of content that we're writing? It can be hard when you're trying to write a chemistry program page or something like that, or physics. It can be hard to weave those things in there.
And when you don't have stories yet, right? Because a lot of times the
exactly.
best way to portray those kinds of themes are through storytelling. But yeah.
And so this is where the faculty piece of things comes in handy.
Yeah.
Knowing who either the program chair is, the department chair, the faculty teaching the course, that can also give you some built-in content that, especially on the graduate side of things, will resonate with students. They're very interested in who is teaching this course, how is the curriculum developed. And for us at Muhlenberg, it's usually the case of the faculty are developing and teaching the course. And so that's a really big selling point for us. So also just knowing yourself, knowing your institution and what really resonates with students. And if you don't have a messaging framework or something like that, just giving ChatGPT some custom instructions on these are some messages that we want to highlight on this page or in this email or piece of content.
Well, that's going to come through at the end too. That's that human piece and the marketing expertise that'll come through at the end after you get it to some recommendations for the page, right? Only you can really know, is this hitting the right points for my institution or not? Yeah,
that's a great point. I remember at our Engage Summit presentation, I specifically kept in the little animation that I put up on screen. I kept in some things to just show an example of things that I wouldn't put on our website. Like, we don't introduce pages in a certain way. We don't have conclusions on pages that are certain things. So again, treat it like this content needs to be reviewed. It's not a final product. It's really important that either you, or if you're not the head content strategist at your institution, having somebody else read through this, because people can, I think we're getting to a point where people can spot AI writing. If the word delve is in your writing, it's an AI generated piece of content. So be careful about making sure that there's words in there. It really requires a really good close proof. Like, there's words in there that you just would not use in your institution's style guide.
Well, just so you all know, one of the rules that Shane and I came up with is no copying and pasting from AI. That's one of the rules, not without reviewing it and making the modifications you see fit.
Yeah, and I would also recommend using multiple AI models. So run it through Claude, run it through Gemini, run it through other things. Use Grammarly AI, but also, don't only rely on AI. That's kind of the lazy way out. Like, you need to proofread this stuff. It is a huge time saver to have it help you ideate this content, but it's ultimately on you to make sure the content is accurate and up to your standards. Yeah,
it makes me think of images. Everyone knows images, you have to really look, right? Because I just saw one where it was 3 heads in a circle, but the eyes were where the chin was supposed to be for one of the people. And it was so obvious, right? So it's not as obvious in text, but it's still making those kinds of errors, everyone. So you do have to look for it. It's just not going to be as glaring as eyes in the wrong place on a face. All right, so let's move forward. So we have all our documents. What do you do with those documents, Shane?
Yeah. So really, I just kind of feed them into ChatGPT and say, I need to create a page for the example I used at Engage Summit was a non-credit certificate that we have at Muhlenberg. It's a leadership academy. So it's meant for, young to mid-career professionals that are looking to kind of take the next step in terms of leadership. I needed to create a page for this. We don't have a precedent for this program at Muhlenberg. It's something new that we're doing. And so really, I just fed the program proposal into ChatGPT. I already had all of those additional items uploaded, but I uploaded them again because I wasn't using a custom GPT. And so I said, follow the attached style guide, follow the attached brand guidelines. I've also attached a messaging framework for you to reference for key messages. And then I fed it also 3 or 4 different program pages that said, structure this page in this way. These are existing pages that we have on our website, and I want it to look like this because I know this is what's going to resonate with that audience. And so from there, within 30 seconds, to be frank, I had a workable piece of content that I could then export to a Google Doc and finesse as I needed. And, really for me, it was, and it always is, like something that is faculty approval ready in a fraction of the time that it would take me otherwise. So I've got a piece of content. We just did a huge rewrite of all of our academic program pages at Muhlenberg. And we used AI to sort of get to that faculty approval ready point, because that process in and of itself is going to be time consuming. So the quicker we can get there, the better. And we're not subject matter experts in all of our programs. So having AI in that capacity was really helpful. But then again, also afterwards, once I get this workable content, it's on me to make sure things are accurate. The tuition numbers are correct that I fed it. Time to complete, things like that, course descriptions. That's all on the marketer to sort of make sure everything is up to par.
So we can prove it's not going to take our jobs, folks.
We're
just using it to our advantage. And when you are using it to your advantage, you're actually going to be more marketable.
Yeah. It's not going to take anybody's job. Our head writer at Muhlenberg is, AI could never replicate what she does.
Yeah.
And, for me, writing is not my full-time job. I enjoy it, but writing academic program pages or writing, as marketers, we've got to go from writing a chemistry page to writing a press release to writing a statement on something happening in the world that morning, all in the course of before lunchtime.
Oh, you're giving us that long, Shane? You're giving us until lunch to do all that?
I know. Maybe before your morning cup of coffee, even depending on the day. But, making those shifts, like for me, it's easier to write a statement or a press release than it is to write academic program page copy. Yeah. So using ChatGPT to write things that are maybe a little more difficult for me is a great tool. It's just the same way as you might feed ChatGPT previous press releases or something. Yeah. If you've got to really turn a press release around quickly and say, here's how we structure our press releases. This is the topic of the release. Help me draft a first draft for review. So it really, for me, it's kind of that wearing multiple hats piece of things as marketers. It's a huge help when you've got to shift gears quickly.
Yeah, we spend our entire careers trying to help our audience with their pain points. So we're talking about something that's helping us with some of our professional pain points, which I think is really great. So I have a way that I've used ChatGPT similar to you, Shane. So shall we turn the tables here?
We shall.
All right,
we shall.
Let's turn them.
Yes. So yours is really interesting. And first of all, give us some background on the actual effort that your team was trying to accomplish. It was, from what I remember from our session, it was exhaustive and it was a big lift. And you really used ChatGPT in a smart way. And so talk about kind of this personalized letter approach that you all were taking.
So we're really, really, really lucky at Siena that our faculty want to connect with prospective students. Like, we have no shortage of volunteers. It is so easy to call up a faculty member and say, hey, I've got this student who wants to connect you. So they're in it with us. They really have that community mindset when it comes to enrollment. So we're so lucky. And one of the ideas that came, I believe it came from the deans, perhaps a cabinet meeting, was around, can we have program chairs send letters about their program to their accepted students to make them feel very welcome, to make them feel desired, and also be able to note the things that are special about their programs. But we have a lot of undergraduate programs at Siena. I'm sure Muhlenberg does too.
Yeah.
So when I'm thinking about coordinating with 30 plus departments and getting program letters out for all of them, I'm freaking out a little bit. This idea, it's a great idea. Love the idea. Yeah. It also came in January of this past year. And we all know, if you work anywhere adjacent to enrollment at a college, what was happening in January with the FAFSA. So fitting this in to all the greater things that are happening, bigger pain point than normal, right? So we really had to figure out a way to do this because it was worth doing. We knew it would be impactful, and we just had to figure out a way.
And just so for reference, Allison, for the audience, how big is your team that was trying to accomplish this project?
Like 2 of us.
Yeah.
Yes.
So right.
And with everything else that we're doing, yes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So 30 letters for between 2 people is very daunting.
Yeah.
So tell us about, say, a similar question that you were asking me. What did you have available to you, and how did you use AI to help supplement what you might have had on hand?
So much like you, I have style guides and those types of things that we've already described for everybody. I also had other letters that we have written to students before. So I had past letters, and I did have a couple examples of specific programs that we had done program letters for before. We just had not done this widespread. So it wasn't that there was non-existent program letters. It wasn't for, we ended up with 24, I think, that ended up raising their hand to do this with us, 24 at a time. So we had those. And we also, luckily, with the opposite of what you had in your scenario, we had their web pages, right? We had all of the web page content, and sometimes that even included recommendations from the program, testimonials, and things like that. So we had good content. But how do we get the message across to the student? And so the thing that I added, similar to what I said a little bit earlier in the podcast, I created a form where I had the faculty tell us the things that are special about their program. So I asked questions like, is there a class everyone loves to take? Is there a favorite, a standout, or just something that's special that other colleges maybe don't have in their curriculum? I asked them for students who could give me a good overview about what their learning experience was like. So then I was able to do a student version of the form that they filled out. So I did a lot of qualitative data collection to enhance the pieces that we already had.
Yeah. And so 24 faculty. Any tips for marketers out there who may struggle with getting faculty engaged? It's great to hear that your faculty were really on board with this, but any advice for people out there who may be wondering, how do I get faculty more connected to our work?
They liked the form. They really did, because it got right at the questions, and they understood that we were trying to get to things that would resonate with the audience. And so they liked having it in that form, and they filled it out really quickly, which is an indicator of not just willingness, but it made it easier for them, right?
Yeah.
Part of this was, normally I would like to sit down and do interviews with faculty in a program. That's the way I would do it when I have breathing room and I'm not pressed for time. Plus, I like going out and talking with faculty and having those kinds of conversations. But we made it usable for them too, not just us, and that was a big win.
Yeah, that's great. Easier is better. It's interesting. You know, at some institutions I've been at, forms are a pain point for people.
Oh, that's funny.
We struggle. Not at Muhlenberg so much, but at other institutions I've been at, we've struggled to get people to buy into forms and realize that we're trying to make your life easier here. I'm trying to save you a meeting. I'm trying to save you email. So I'm glad to hear that you had success with forms. So, you know, again, this was a high volume of programs. And as we talked about, marketers, it's impossible to be experts in all of these programs. So how did you determine, you touched on it a little bit, but talk about determining what exactly the value propositions were for each of these programs that you were going to focus on.
So what I did is I formed the questions I was asking the students. I actually had some alumni in there too, and the faculty, around what we know resonates from market research with our students, right? Like, we know that career preparation is really, really important. We know that relationship with the faculty member is really, really important. So what we did is that's how we made that shine. And also we structured the questions around what we want to portray about Siena. So it helped us get at those themes that we know will resonate and also are special about Siena as a whole, which meant that all of this went under the umbrella of our brand. So each of the programs would still be connected to the larger Siena brand, but also be able to reveal for the students what is really special about that particular program.
Yeah. And that's super helpful, because one of the things I found really useful with especially ChatGPT is really helping me get organized around complex topics. Yeah. And so this volume of topics is really complex, and saying to ChatGPT, pick a maximum of 2 value propositions that I can use for these letters is probably really helpful. So that's, really good advice, and I think a really good use case of ChatGPT. So back to the form.
Yeah.
So I'm curious about how did you use AI to help you analyze and interpret this data? What did you do with the data that you got back?
So what I did is I did take the data that came in for each program and I combined it with the website and anything else that we had, because some programs had other things. Like I might have a video transcript for a program, but for some and for not others. But whatever data I could collect that has told the stories of this program before, I included all of that, and I asked ChatGPT to give me themes, the top themes that emerge from this. So that's how I started. And then I gave it the style guide and all of that and said, okay, now take these themes and this style guide and write a letter to this student. I was very clear on the goal of the letter. The goal of the letter was to make the student know that the department wanted them, but also sell the department, the program to the student. It was a twofold goal. So I had real clarity around the goals for the letter and really good clarity around tone, a voice, and all of that from our style guide. And then each of the letters, there was similarities in structure, but definitely difference in content, because it was highlighting what's the best things to highlight about each of the programs. Whereas a science program, you're going to highlight the amazing research opportunities, and at Siena that they could do that day one as a freshman, because we don't have grad students in science. So that's a real advantage. Mm-hmm. So, but it was able to find those things that would be special and resonate with the students. Whereas a business major, you're highlighting an internship or a class that every business student takes right in the first year. So it did a pretty good job. And that's where I made adjustments to those themes as I felt needed before I got to the letter. So there was lots of iteration in this and human perspective put into it as it went. So I think part of what the story is, maybe for both of us, Shane, is that there's steps to this. We don't go in and just tell it, write me this letter. We have all this work that gets done up front to make sure that it's going to come out the right way.
Exactly. Yeah. Great point. And that's why I love the idea that you use these forms, because you were able to get a lot of data that you were able to use. But again, that's difficult on a tight timeline to kind of turn around and interpret yourself. So using, ChatGPT in that particular use case is really smart too. I'm thinking of this is a really granular use case, but the other day I had to determine time in the funnel for our leads, and I needed to do it pretty quickly. And we use Element 451 at Muhlenberg, and I know there's a way to do it, but I didn't have time. So I went to ChatGPT and said, here's, I exported a report that said, here's when the person created their account. Here's when they applied. Tell me the average time in the funnel. And it came back with a fairly accurate, it was like 176 days or something like that. But I was able to do that in 5 minutes versus having to, create an Excel sheet and create pivot tables and do all this kind of different things. So there's just so many uses if you're prepared with the materials that you need and the information at your disposal. Speaking of information at your disposal, one of the things we talked about in our session was making sure that you're giving ChatGPT accurate, current information. Some of the hesitancy in higher ed around AI in general is kind of accuracy. Is it cheating? Is it plagiarism? And so why is it important for marketers and, really everybody using AI to make sure that what you're giving ChatGPT is accurate and not just relying on the knowledge that it's acquiring from around the internet and around the world?
Well, if you do that, you're never going to be able to make your institution stand out. Everything that it puts back is going to be generic. So all that front work that you did and that I did to be able to set ourselves up to be able to use ChatGPT to help us with this, that made it institutionally specific. Like it would totally come out like any letter or something that any college would say if you didn't do all of that front work with this.
Yeah. Yeah. And, I think it's important for us as marketers, especially with if there may be hesitancy around campus or with certain faculty members or administration about adopting AI. It's important for us as marketers to show that this tool can be used in a responsible way that can really enhance what we're doing as an institution. And I think that starts with what information you're feeding ChatGPT and what information you're just checking as a human to say, okay, I need to double check this because I can't just put this out into the universe assuming that it's accurate.
Yeah. I think we're all starting to see through that now. We can tell when it's generic. We can tell when it sounds robotic. Yeah. We can see it. We know when it's not authentic. And we know that our audiences that we're talking about see that BS too, right? They don't want to be fed BS. They want authenticity. Yeah. And so another piece of that is we're able to reference, because of the information I collected on the forums, able to reference really specific things that happen in the classroom or a really specific success story, because you're able to infuse it with real stories from your institution. Yeah. So then it just doesn't sound bland, like you could throw any college logo on the top.
Yeah, I'm telling you, delve is the word to look out for.
I think it's emojis. I don't know. It really likes
emojis
to do
too.
Emojis for bullet points and stuff like that.
It does.
Really likes an emoji.
Well, and that's another really important thing, because accessibility as far as emojis in text, that's, of course, ChatGPT, I hope they're working on best practices around accessibility, but there are certain standards that we have to also apply to what we're putting out there on social, putting out there in the world, and certain, emojis at certain points in text are not accessible. And so that's where relying on your expertise as a marketer can come into play. So Allison, what other ways, in addition to this project, what other ways are you and your team utilizing AI at Siena?
What I'm going to say is going to sound more general, only because I want people to take the strategy we're using. So what we're doing is actually at our team meetings, we're going around and we're having everyone share an example. So I think the best thing to do for your team, if you're listening, is to unleash them, let them play around, let them try, let them see what works well, what fails, what comes out really bad, so that everyone can learn from it. So I think there's a million ways that we can use this as marketers, right? I mean, the possibilities are endless. We're coming up with new ones as we sit and talk right now, I know. But for each team that's out there, I think that's the best way to do it, so that you end up using it for you and how it works for your team the best.
Yeah, you're right. It is the way to learn anything. Yeah. Every time I go to a conference and I think like, I feel pretty good about my AI knowledge. Somebody like Brian Piper will get up on stage and show a video translated into Korean. I'm like, wait a minute, what? Yeah. And so, I think the best ideas do come from just experimenting and learning from others. One of the things that I found useful is using ChatGPT as a subject matter expert and creating custom GPTs to act as faculty members, quote unquote. My social media director and I are working on a student life expert at Muhlenberg that can give us ideas on content for current students to showcase, the student life at Muhlenberg. So you're right. There is just unlimited uses. And I think the best way to learn is to just get in there and do it.
I think that's a great way to wrap up, and then just tell everyone, come see us next year at Engage Summit, because I am absolutely 100% sure we will be talking about AI and generative AI and how it can help all of us at next year's summit too.
Yeah, absolutely. Hopefully see everybody in Raleigh next June. All right, Allison, thanks so much for this crossover episode. I hope everybody enjoyed it, and you can catch the episode both on Breaking Silos and the application. So wherever you get your podcast, both of those channels will have it.
And don't forget to give us a rating when you do.
Breaking Silos is part of the Enrollify podcast network. If you like this podcast, chances are you'll like other Enrollify shows too.
Our podcast network is growing by the month, and we've got a plethora of marketing, enrollment, and higher ed technology shows that are jam-packed with stories, ideas, and frameworks, all designed to empower you to be a better higher ed professional. Our shows help marketers and admissions professionals find their next big idea and feature a selection of the industry best as your host. Learn from Dave Cabilds, Jenny Lee Fowler, Eddie Francis, and many more of your favorite leaders in higher ed. Enrollify is made possible by Element 451, the next generation AI student engagement platform, helping institutions create meaningful and personalized interactions with students. Learn more at element451.com.